Hello everybody, welcome back to Artisan X, a resource hub for developers of X-Plane aircraft. If you're looking for information and resources regarding X-Plane aircraft development, you are in the right place. Module 4, Development and Production. Hi, and welcome back to the next section of developing our aircraft in PlaneMaker and X-Plane. Again, we are working on the model that you don't see when you're finished, but it is the model that flies within the X-Plane environment simulator that provides all of the handling characteristics and flight characteristics of the airplane, as well as the performance specifications. And we're going to start working on those specifications in this model. Remember, at this point in your development, you would just have the fuselage in here. This is a little bit further ahead, but in order to try to make these videos be somewhat a good use of your time, we're going to kind of walk through these things fairly quickly, because I think you'll catch on the ideas and be able to catch up to this point fairly quickly. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to explain a lot of things by typing in the same things over and over again. So we're going to go back to our airplane here and back to our favorite book, the aircraft manual. And we're going to go to the performance specification page. It is right here, some of the first information we're going to need off of this. Again, if you remember from the last episode, I suggest you should read through this and kind of learn where the data is and what kind of data is in there, because it'll start coming in helpful. So now we're going to start up with an aircraft. Again, if you're getting those errors saying that there's some missing specifications, we're going to start filling those in today, so those will start going away on you. That's normal when all you've done so far is build a fuselage. And I think you'll see as we're going through this why I start building the fuselage, because it kind of helps a little bit to kind of just put a reference point on some of these things when we're starting to adjust them. So the first tab that we're going to open up under the standard area is the author tab, and the author has got some good information on it. The name for the aircraft is in here. That's what's going to show up on X-Plane as being the name of it. The call sign for ATC, so in this case just GA7. The name is Grumman GA7. You just make up a tail number. The ICAO code for air traffic control. You can look that up for a lot of aircraft and find it by a Google search. Again, Google is your friend down there. And find out what the ICAO code is for your airplane. In this case, it is GA7. The default livery name is just default in my case. The author is me, Artisan Simulation. Right now we're working on file version 1.0. Design Studio is Artisan Simulation. We're not going to put a description in there right now, and we don't really have any notes. The manufacturer in this is Grumman. They're in the list. If you get to one that says other, if it's not in there. Supports user flights, so that's the one we want. That means you're going to be flying it versus the AI aircraft that you could make. If you want to make AI aircraft, you can, but this is a user airplane. It's a general aviation aircraft, so we're going to tick that box like that by clicking on it and turning it green. It's not military, it's not a seaplane, it's not a helicopter. So everything else off of this is now correct as we're going through the area in here. So as we're looking at this first folder here, if you've gotten this one put in, congratulations, you've completed your first section of the airplane outside of the fuselage. The next one's where we're going to start getting into a little more work on it, and it's called Viewpoint. And there's a couple things here that I want to make sure that we get. The first one is, if you want to know what one is, for instance, this first one is VSO. If you just let your mouse hover over the black box, and they're tiny little things on my monitor here, you will get a description of what it is, and in this case you also see, and they've highlighted, these numbers are for airspeed indicator markings only and are used in the flight model. X-Plane is pretty clear that their flight model is based off of the 3D model you build over here. Some of these do have, like the V never E speed, will be used to calculate an overspeed because they don't know what the aircraft's made out of. So those are the important ones that we're going to go through. The first one that we're going to add in there is a VY, which is for a climb speed. It's not listed on this page here, but I believe I did find that someplace doing some research. If not, I looked up several aircraft that are similar and kind of got an idea what a good number would be on that based on what we have. And some of these I don't have anything for, so I've left them empty for now on our development. But there's a few in here we do want to look at. So this one, VFE, is for fully extended flaps. And here you'll see that number on our chart here is listed. Flaps extended full down is 110 knots indicated airspeed. So we're going to place that in here, and if we look at it in there, it does tell us that this is in airspeed, which is in knots for this airplane. The airspeed for maximum airspeed in knots for the first detent is 145, and the VFE is for expended gear. That one is actually incorrect. We need to put that one down to 145 knots. So if I click on there, I can just type in 145. I can use these up and down areas to change them as well. Click on up or down. They're kind of hard to hit as we're going through. And next it asks for our VA, which is right here. 100 at maximum weight is 120. Our VNO is 160. And our VNE is 188. So again, we filled out a good portion of this area with this chart, a couple other charts that supplemental areas that you might find in some of the other documentation for this airplane, or if not, like I said, you can look at similar aircraft to get an idea of what the range would be, and based on the other numbers that you have in here, something that makes sense for you to kind of put in there to go. Our speed unit is in knots for this airplane. The last airplane I was working on actually had miles per hour as its basic units. And the default for 2D cockpits, we're going to not really worry a lot about 2D cockpits. They're really not used too much anymore. And now if we go ahead and go back to our plane maker here and hit the space bar to go into wireframe mode, you're going to notice there's a few dots that are on the airplane right now. The area here is going to give you the default place where the pilot's head would be. So it needs to know where to put the camera when you go inside of the airplane as your default view. So that's called these areas. And you'll notice that there are 3 numbers associated that describe this ball's location. This is the pilot's head in 3D space. You have your longitudinal arm, your lateral arm, and your vertical arm. And you'll be able to see just by moving them. If I go here and move this up, you'll see it'll move up and back. If I add 10 feet to it, it went back 10 feet. So a positive rate on my longitudinal arm here moves it back. So it's measured. I use the tip of my nose as my basic area as my starting point. It just makes sense for what we're doing off of this. And so I figured out that I need to be about 9.8 feet back for this to look like it's in the right space for the pilot's head. And we're just trying to get really close right now. We'll be able to tweak this once we have a 3D model up and running. It might make sense to move it a little bit. Then if we go to a top view, you'll see for the latitudinal arm, it'll try to move it. It'll move it back and forth if I move this one. So I did a -1. If I go to a -2, you'll see I move it up right against the side right there. So -1 out kind of moves me over into the pilot seat side of the area of the airplane for there. And then vertically, we'll go back to the side, and we'll see that we want it to go to where it is. If I move it up another foot, you'll see my head be sticking through the roof. That's not what we want. That looks pretty good for that. So we've used these 3 numbers now to move this ball, and by moving them here in wireframe, you can actually see where that is, and what we're manipulating, so you'll know where we are. The other one here is for a center of gravity for the airplane. We'll get to that later, but this one is the one that is the being controlled by the pilot's view on this. The rest of these I just leave at a default of 0, and we have about a 60-degree field of view. That seems about right from my take as looking out the aircraft as we have. And the map section here, we're not working on that right now. We'll leave that where it is. So as a first pass through this, we now have our center of gravity for the airplane, so it knows where to put a pilot inside of the airplane to start with. We've determined some of our speeds now that we need to worry about, different speeds for flaps, gears, and just never exceed structural speeds off of it. I'll hit spacebar again. So this would be a good time to hit File and Save again. And you should be noticing now we should be getting closer to having Explain not yell at us so much about missing areas. It now knows how much never exceed speed is. So it's no longer 0, which would mean that the plane would blow up the second it loads because it's already exceeded its never exceed speed. And we're ready to go off of that. So that gives us the author and the view part. Let's do one more in this video. We'll go to limits. The next one down on the list right here, and you'll see on this one there's not a lot for us to work on right now. We will get to this later. There's some gauging that happens when we get into doing the cockpit design. So if you click any of these, you can start putting in some of the gauge parameters that will, for some automatic gauges that they have or digital gauges that they have. We're not really at a place to worry about that yet. This is something we'll go back to at a later date. So for our first pass through this, we've gone through now the first 3 areas that we have off of this. And we're going to skip over the panel right now. It's my philosophy is let's get an airplane outside first. Now that we've put a viewpoint for you to look out, you'll see if we go through this that you'll be able to see out. It's just you won't see a cockpit inside yet, and you won't see any panels because we haven't built them yet. But we'll be able to start creating an aircraft that we can get in and fly around on. So we'll work on that and do that. So we're going to skip panel 2D and 3D for now. At the next one, we'll start with the engine specifications and look at filling out those areas so we can have a plane. So that's it for this episode. We'll be back next time to continue going through X-Plane's Plane Maker. And until then, take care.